Welcome to Accepted Secrets of New York City School Admissions with Alina Adams, author of the ebook Getting into New York City Kindergarten. I'm Victoria Chapman, and previously we teased that we'd be talking about charter schools, but we're going to take a detour and delve a bit deeper into the topic of testing and prepping for tests. To prep or not to prep. Now, previously, Alina, we talked about gifted and talented public school programs and Hunter College Elementary and the test your child need to take. So this raises the question about studying for the test. What say you?
Well, whenever people ask me whether they should prep their child for kindergarten admissions, be it public school gifted and talented, be it Hunter College Elementary, be it private school, I always ask them this question. You're an adult. Tell me, do you do better at something that you have never seen before or a task that you've practiced a few times? Now, why should a child be any different? The fact of the matter is children do better if they've seen and practiced the task a few times beforehand.
Okay, so is everybody prepping?
That is the rumor. There are actually two rumors on that subject. One is everyone in New York City schools is being tutored. People will tell you that everyone, it doesn't matter if it's public or they're private, everybody's being tutored. Now, is that true? No. Are people getting tutored? Yes. Are kids as young as kindergarten, first and second grade getting tutored on various subjects? Yes, they are. But is everyone getting tutored? No, that is absolutely not true. And it's the exact same thing with this. Is everyone being prepped? No. Are children being prepped? Yes. In fact, previously, private schools used to give a test which colloquially was known as the ERB, but ERB actually stands for Education Records Bureau, which is the name of the organization that gives the test. It was actually the WIPC test. And the fact is so many children were scoring in the 99th percentiles due to prepping, and some who weren't being prepped, some who just did it unprepped, that the schools decided that the test really didn't have much value. And most schools said they would no longer be giving or accepting those results, although some schools still are. So it's very possible that your child may end up taking 4 different intelligence tests this season. But to answer your initial question, is everyone getting prepped? No. Are some children being prepped? Absolutely.
Okay, then should children be prepped? As you indicated, some people will do better on things that they've seen before than if they haven't. And how should a parent go about it? What are the options?
Well, the answer to the question of should children be prepped, it comes down to this. If it's Hunter or bust for you, if it's Anderson or bust for you, if it's Horace Mann or bust for you, then yes, go ahead and get your child prepped, if only so that 30 years from now when they're living on your couch, you're not going, oh, if only I had gotten them prepped for kindergarten, everything would be so much different. So yes, in that respect, if it's very, very, very important to you that your child ends up classified as gifted, even though there's many different tests and classifications on that, as there probably are children, but if it's very, very important to you, go ahead and get your child prepped.
Okay.
Now, your options are you could do it yourself, you could buy test prep materials, or you could take them to a professional tutoring center.
So basically there's a DIY version or tutoring.
And a lot of sort of permutations in between, but yeah.
So just quickly, what are some of the permutations in between?
You can buy a workbook and work with your child yourself.
Okay.
You can download materials off the internet and work with your child yourself, or you can download materials off the internet and hire a tutor to work with them. So there's different combinations of that.
Okay. All right. Well, from what I understand, you have sat down and talked with a couple of people about a couple of these options.
I have, because I figure people have been listening to me for quite a few podcasts now. It's about time for them to hear a fresh voice and hear from someone else.
Okay. So, as you said, there are multiple ways. When we come back, we'll talk with 2 people who know some test prep. Karen Quinn, a.k.a. Testing Mom, who created a board game to turn test prep into fun, and Taylor Kelly of Bright Kids. We'll be right back. Hi, and welcome back to Accepted Secrets of New York City School Admissions with Alina Adams, author of the ebook Getting into New York City Kindergarten. We've been talking about prepping for testing. And first, we're going to look at a little bit on DIY, doing it yourself. Alina recently sat down with Karen Quinn, who literally wrote the book on testing for kindergarten. That's actually the name of the book. And it's a bestseller, and it prompted Karen to start her own website called testingmom.com. So Alina had a little chat with her and got tips on what parents can do to get their kids ready for intelligence testing.
Karen, welcome to Getting into NYC Kindergarten.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here.
Now, I have to ask you, you are Testing Mom. Your website is testingmom.com. How did you become Testing Mom?
Well, I became the testing mom because many years ago my son scored in the 37th percentile on an IQ test that he took, and I was told that he would never get into a regular classroom. So with the help of my mother, who's a PhD in early childhood development, I began working with him, and within a year, every day I worked with him, just a little bit, 30 minutes every day. A year later, he was retested, scored in the 94th percentile, and got into the private school in New York that we wanted him to go to. So that's what got me into this whole field, and I just became obsessed with helping parents help their own kids when it came to the testing that they were going to have as young kids. So I wanted to share what I knew about how to work with your own child so they'll be ready for the test in a kind of a fun and playful way.
Well, that's exactly what I want to talk to you about, because some people think they have to necessarily take their child to a tutor or take them to a professional center, but you say that parents can actually work with their own kids and get them ready just as well.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. A tutor or a testing center, you're going to be spending $150 a session, something like that. And you're only going to go once a week. And maybe if you have a lot of money, you can go twice a week. But as a parent, you're there with your child every day, all the time. And you have all these opportunities to, in a fun and playful way, build up the skills that they need for the test. The trick is you need to know what to work on. And at Testing Mom, that's what we try to show you. So we actually have a section on our website called New York City Gifted Testing. And in that section, we have lots of practice questions that you can actually sit down and do with your child. You can print them out if you want. You can do them online if you want. But just by doing these questions with your child, you're going to see what their strengths are. You're going to see what their weaknesses are. And you will know that, okay, my kid is really good on verbal types of questions, but they're struggling with nonverbal. So that tells you, okay, I can do puzzles with my child. I can be working with parquetry blocks with my child. And we kind of show you offline things that you can do as well in terms of games and play that will build the skills they're going to be assessed on it in all the programs for New York City Gifted programs.
Now, test prep probably isn't a kid's idea of a great time. You have tricks for making this whole thing fun for kids?
Yes, I mean we're all about making it fun and keeping it playful. So on our website, for example, if your child is going to be tested for New York City Gifted and Talented, one of the things they're going to have to take is what's called the NNAT test, and that is it's a nonverbal test. We actually have games on our website that kids can play. They're really fun, and if you just play them with your child, one game in particular, they will do beautifully on the NNAT because they will have practiced that skill over and over, but in a game-like format. The other thing we have is a board game that we've actually just re-released, and it's a board game that's really 25 games in one. It has an online interface, but it's also a board game, so there's a lot of hands-on work with manipulatives and that sort of thing. But it's colorful and it's fun and it features space babies and it's hugely fun for kids. They think they're playing. They have no idea that they're learning anything. The way I put it is, it's kind of like if you could make spinach tastes like chocolate pudding, you would do that. And that's really what this game is. It's just fun. They play, they think they're just playing a big game, and instead you're really getting them ready for testing. And the thing that's so important for parents to know is if you're getting a child ready for testing, what you're really doing is you're getting them ready for school.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they're ready to be tested and they can do well on a test, that means they're ready to start kindergarten. They've got those basic underlying skills that schools are going to be looking for your child to have when they start school.
Now, how much time in advance of taking the test would you recommend beginning to prep your child?
Well, the more time you have, the better, because then you can do it more slowly. So I would say, if you are able to start a year in advance, do a little bit every day, that's fantastic. But if it's 6 months before testing, or 3 months before testing, or even a month before testing, anything you do to help your child prepare will make an enormous difference. I mean, think about it. It's kind of like if you are going somewhere for the first time and you've never been there before and you're trying to find it, think about how hard it is to find it and how many wrong turns you might make. But once you've been somewhere a few times, you know exactly where to go. And that's what test prep is all about. Once the child has experienced what it's going to be like to answer the different types of questions, when they are presented with those questions, they know what to do. They know how to handle themselves. And so just the familiarity will make a big difference. So if you have more time, take it. If you don't, anything you do will be helpful to your child. And at Testing Mom, what we try to do is our membership in our website is so inexpensive. Anybody can join. Our goal is to make it available for everybody. I mean, you can join for a year at Testing Mom and have access to everything we have for less than the cost of one session with a tutor.
Oh,
so,
wow.
It's really, really cost effective for everybody.
If there was one sort of real-world activity that you could recommend to parents that they could be doing with their child and should be doing with their child, not even just to get them ready for testing, but as you just said, to get them ready for school, what would you recommend?
Oh, I have a couple.
All right, then.
But, okay, one is going to be talking to your child all the time about everything and anything. So just as you're walking down the street, you can have a running commentary with your child about what you guys are seeing and observing and talking about what's of interest to your child. So constantly talking with your child. Reading to your child, huge. I mean, those two things alone will build vocabulary, expressive language, receptive language, things they're going to need for the tests and for school. So talking, and also you should be talking about math, because that's how children learn math, actually, is through language.
Mm-hmm.
So you can be counting your steps to the corner. You can be, talking about when you give them 4 treats, four little goldfish. Say, here's 4 goldfish. I'm going to eat 2. How many are left? So talking about math, with it during your life. Those are all things that will really help your child get ready for testing and for school. And for the New York City test, nonverbal is really important.
Mm-hmm.
So doing things, working with manipulatives, making patterns with manipulatives, stringing beads and making patterns as you string beads will be very, very helpful. Doing puzzles is very helpful. So I could go on and on, but those are all really good things to be doing in everyday life. And the key for test prep with parents is make it fun, keep it playful, and once you understand kind of what's going to be on the test, you'll be able to work and bring it into your life all the time.
So the website is testingmom.com. That's where people can buy the board game and where they can sign up to do the practice questions, correct?
Absolutely, yes, they can. And the other thing they get when they join Testing Mom is that they can always send emails to me, to Karen at Testing Mom, and I answer their questions as they're working with their kids, because questions do come up. Children aren't focusing, or they're having trouble learning how to do a pattern, and parents will ask me, well, what more can I do? And I give them other activities and things to do with their kids to get them ready. So just by joining our site, they get access to me, and I answer all their test prep questions, and I encourage them and give them new things to do. I give them assignments for their kids when they're having trouble. So I really try to help parents work with their own kids, because that's what did it for me. I worked with my son, as I said. That was a while ago. He just graduated from NYU. So it all worked out. And it will work out for your parents, too.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about that. Thank you so much for joining us today, Karen. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
That was Alina talking with Karen Quinn of TestingMom.com. But what if you don't feel up to tackling your child's test prep on your own? Never fear, this is New York City, and plenty of professionals are ready, eager, and willing to help. When we return, Alina will speak with Taylor Kelly from the tutoring company, Bright Kids. We'll be right back.
Hey, Taylor. Welcome to Getting into NYC Kindergarten.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Today we're going to talk about getting your kids prepped for tests. We've talked about the gifted and talented. We've talked about Hunter College Elementary. We've talked about private schools. Now, what is a reason for a parent to bring their child into a tutoring center as opposed to doing it by themselves?
You know, it's funny, I get that sort of from parents all the time. And a couple of the biggest things are, one, a lot of kids are so used to their families that they don't behave like they would with a teacher or someone that they're not familiar with, because they know how to work you. As a parent, they learn different things to do, and they're not necessarily as cooperative at home as they would be in a room with a teacher. But the biggest thing to me that I tell parents every single day is that a tutoring center is going to replicate the testing environment as best as possible. Mm-hmm. The child is not going to be comfortable at first. They're going to go into a room with someone they're not familiar with, and they're going to get that experience at building their stamina in an unfamiliar environment. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of what I tell parents all the time.
Now, what's a typical session at Bright Kids like?
Well, so depending on the program, typically, regardless of whatever the prep is, it begins with a diagnostic session. So the child will come into our office, and they will sit down with the teacher, and they'll begin working on a list of, different question types depending on what they're preparing for that will kind of gauge what their level is. Mm-hmm. After that first session, they will have a customized curriculum built for them based on that test that will go through them, for the next couple of sessions. The sessions are always with the younger kids. They're one-on-one. Mm-hmm. Typically they're 45 minutes, because that's about as long as you're going to get, say a 4-year-old to sit still and focus.
How is that compared to what a real test would be? How long is an actual test that they take?
Well, honestly, a lot of times they're around that time range. Mm-hmm. Again, depending on the test. Sometimes a child with really good stamina who's very smart can finish very quickly. Say, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. But it can, a lot of times, some of the tests can take as long as an hour, hour and a half. So it just depends. Something like the Stanford Binet, I have heard stories of taking about an hour and a half because it is at the child's pace. Mm-hmm. For the newer test, like the ABLE, it's self-administered and there's no time limit on it, so they're going to go through it as quickly or as slowly as they need to.
Do you teach the child how to pace themselves?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest skills that they'll learn in the tutoring lessons, especially with us, is one, stamina, how to sit there and focus, but also how to sit there and work on each problem and move on to the next problem. For a lot of these young kids, they've never seen questions like this. They've never worked in an environment like this. So that's the biggest thing. And I get a lot of questions from parents as well. How do you guys teach them and build their stamina in this way? And I was talking to a teacher about, really kind of just getting them to sit still for small increments until it's finally longer and longer, and they finally are there at that 40-minute mark, that 1-hour mark, and they can finally do it, and they've built their stamina.
How many sessions does a child usually get?
Parents will come in and they ask that question in the beginning, how many should I start with? Because we have everything ranging. And you can buy a pay-as-you-go session and do just 2 sessions. Our packages typically start with around 5 sessions, but, our smallest packages. But what I recommend for parents to start out with is something around a 10 or a 12 session package, because that's about 10 or 12 weeks. And then from there, at the end of that, you can kind of decide whether, you guys want to do more or, be done. But I think that it's sort of a middle mark, 10 to 12 weeks.
How early before the child is scheduled to take the test should they begin prepping?
So it depends on the test itself. I mean, it's funny, here in the city, I feel like all the tests are very difficult for the children. So, we have, for say, the GNT for New York City, we have parents that start all the way in the summer, the spring, summer, with what we call our Skill Builder program for the gifted and talented, and that's going to be more foundational and less test prep. It's more play-based learning. And then, they'll start in, say, September with the actual test prep, which is the worksheets and the specific material for the test. So that's sort of something to consider. But, kids start as early as about 3.5 on these types of things.
So what happens if a parent suddenly realizes that, oh no, they've fallen behind and they didn't do anything about it? Because the fact is, we've talked on this podcast about how early admissions start, and somehow people don't even realize how early they have to be thinking about kindergarten. The fact is, Hunter College Elementary applications went up before your child started their first day of pre-K. Some parents just weren't ready. So if a parent suddenly wakes up one morning and realizes, oh no, I forgot, I'm behind, how quickly can this be done?
Well, one thing that I will emphasize, and I do it all the time, is that, you can't cram test prep with young children. It doesn't work. It's a waste of time and money. So, the best thing that you can do is you can just go in with the best attitude you've got and work with them as much as you can, whether, it's at home or in a tutoring session or both. What I like to tell parents is, schedule tutoring sessions once a week. Once a week for a child, 45 minutes to do specific test material is perfect. You start doing more than that, I've seen it, the kids get burnt out very quickly. But when you're at home, you can work on those skills, those foundational skills, the puzzles, the counting, any of those things in a fun way. A lot of times parents will be on the elevator with their children and they'll make it a game. They'll say something like, is the 10th floor, is that greater or less than the floor we were just on? Those types of things. Interactive. Something that's not sitting down in their house focused and test prep specific every single day. They won't want to do it.
The big park bench bugaboo of New York City life is, a tester can tell when a child has been prepped, and some people are completely terrified of that. What do you say to parents who think that if a tester will tell that their child has been prepped, that's it, it's all over?
There have been really bright students that have been asked if they've prepped, and they haven't. They're just very bright by nature. So, at the end of the day, these skills are things that they'll be able to translate into kindergarten, regardless of what tests or schools they're applying for. So, I don't know. Personally, I think it's dumb, because I think that as a parent, if you're going out of your way to prepare your child for something, A, they're learning, and that's all you can ever ask for as a parent. And B, there are too many people out there, one, that are preparing, regardless of whether it's for a specific test or it's enrichment tutoring, to say that, someone's going to know that your child's specifically prepared for this exam. It doesn't make any sense.
Now, you had mentioned that you can buy a package of sessions. How much does a package of sessions usually run?
Well, honestly, our packages are less expensive than any kind of pay-as-you-go option, so I always recommend it. But our one-on-one is typically somewhere around, I would say, let's just say a 10 session, it's usually around $1,200. For example, that's like our GNT program. Now, that $1,200 is going to get you publications to work on at home. It's going to get you that first diagnostic session, maybe a progress test in there, session reports that you're always able to see online, those types of things, interactions with the teachers, any kind of support from our office. We have account managers in all of our offices that are well-trained on the different tests. We have a great curriculum team. So you have a full office of support going through this process. And let me tell you, as you know, there are a lot of different things that you definitely might want help with throughout the year.
So if parents want help and they want to reach out to you, what's the best way to get in touch with Bright Kids?
I always say the easiest way is through email or our website. Our website is www.bright, bright-kids.com.
Yeah, that dash is important. That dash is important between the Bright and the Kids, right?
Exactly, yeah, bright-kids.com. And that'll take you to our landing page. You'll have, an option for either our publications website, which has all of our test prep publications, or tutoring. You click on tutoring there, and there are all kinds of ways you can get in touch with us, whether it's through one of our offices or there's a contact us button, as well as a phone number. You're welcome to reach out and give us a call if you'd like.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Taylor. We really appreciate it.
No worries. Anytime you need anything, let me know.
Wow, a lot of great information here today, Alina. Any last thoughts?
Well, they're sort of like my first thoughts. Basically, whenever anybody asks me about getting their child prep, to prep or not to prep, I always say, yes, if it's important to you. There are many children who go to many wonderful schools that do not require tests, and their families are very happy. But if you feel that you will not be happy if your child is not in one of these exam schools, then yes, go ahead and get them prepped in any way that works for your family.
Excellent. Okay. So, looking ahead, our next show, accelerating or holding your child back. And the clock is ticking. Timelines.
Exactly. It's ticking.
Okay. Tell us again about your book.
My book is available on Amazon and barnesandnoble.com, and I have several free workshops coming up in New York City, and you can find information about all of that on www.alinaadams.com.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, and we will catch you next time.